welcome everybody to the happy hour. A little bit of an impromptu training forum that ISFSI has put together in the spirit of FDIC when we couldn't get all together for the social. So we just try to get together every 2 weeks here and talk about training needs. Sometimes we have a little guest speaker doing a little blurb. Sometimes it's just kind of a free forum, but it's only going to be as good as we make it here, and paying it forward to each other and helping each other out with trials and tribulations as training officers or as company officers or as chief officers, and how we can make each other's organizations better. So this is a much more of a forum type format. The rules of engagement here today is please everybody mute your mics so we don't get a lot of feedback for whoever's talking, and just give me the virtual wave, or you can get on the chat. And unfortunately we have some little glitch with the settings today on the chat room, so I can see everybody's questions on the chat, and then I'll just rudely interrupt everybody and go forward with more questions and try to get the discussion. And as we get more and more people populated on these windows, it's really hard to see everybody's name, and everybody gets really tiny, and I can't see very well anymore either. So the chat room is the best, so I can see your name and I can call on you and then kind of give you the floor, so to speak. Well, with that, the ISFSI is underneath some challenging times to try to make training a very unique thing we do. This virtual world that we're in is kind of become the new normal for training officers. I know we're still trying to navigate it in my organization, and really trying to be innovative on how we deliver good, safe, effective training, and more importantly, how ISFSI can deliver to its membership and be more effective in supporting each other in their mission with their training program. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mike here. Mike had a couple of words to start us off and talk about some training projects or some training needs, and I'll turn the floor over to Mike.
Well, dude, thanks, Seth. I sit on 2 different committees, and we've been throwing around some ideas, trying to come up with some topics or suggestions for the happy hours. And one thing that came up was, as we all move through our careers as training officers, we all hit that point or that roadblock where we're like throwing our hands up in the air and what do I do? So we felt like this may be a good forum or a good opportunity to allow the membership to throw it out and say, hey, I'm looking for this project. Is there anyone out there that has something that could help me? I'm a firm believer that in a lot of cases, R&D should stand for rip off and duplicate, not research and development. I think too often in the fire service, we all try to reinvent the wheel, where if we would reach out and network, we could find something that's already out there that we can take, change, modify, or whatever to fit our needs. So if somebody's looking for a training program or something, this would be a good time to throw it out and say, hey, does anybody have this? Another thing is we all hit a point where we hit that roadblock once again. To give you an example, I've had 2 firefighters that I'm running into significant learning disability issues with, and I've had to go to outside resources to try to help them. So once again, has something come up and you're like, I'm really not sure where to go with this, can somebody possibly help me out? So if anyone has anything that you're looking for, training program wise, material, etc., references, throw that out. If somebody here can help you out, we want to make that connection. And then if you're just scratching your head and you're stumped and you're like, I've got a situation, can somebody out there, have you been there before? Do you have some suggestions? So that being said, I'll turn it over, and if anybody's got anything, throw it out there.
Hey, Chief, if I could chime in real quick. So I'm co-chairing with Chief Richardson on the online committee, and I think one of the things that's important is that we talk about the happy hour. We're kind of looking, nothing is set in stone yet, but we're looking at making sure that the different online and electronic and webinar products kind of make sense to what the intent of the program is, and so you know what you're getting, as opposed to coming in and going, oh my God, I didn't know this was going to be 2 hours or whatever. And so the one thing we're looking at with the happy hour is to kind of get back to what I think was the original intent, which is to create more discussion and dialogue and interaction, as opposed to some of them all well-meaning. I mean, I was one of those folks who viewed it more as a online training session and had a more of a webinar, a training package that went for essentially that full time frame. So I think this session really ties in with meeting that goal of getting interaction, getting members talking to each other, sharing ideas. And, going forward, if you look at happy hour, you should be thinking, yeah, let's talk, let's engage, let's get to meet people from other parts of the country and other members in the society that I haven't met up to this point. So with that, I'll just bounce out. And if you do, whoever marks up, if you give us your name, obviously where you're at, your background, and then kind of the scope of whatever it is you're looking at, so we can chime in and help out.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thanks, Mark. The happy hour again is this, almost like a facilitated discussion, and we don't even know which way we're going to navigate most times. And then the webinars are going to be for ISFSI membership, and then hopefully some dues or some revenue-based resources that we're going to charge for a webinar, and then an online class delivery, which will either be one of two things, either live or module-based, and those will kind of escalate as far as charges go to organizations, specifically if an organization isn't part of ISFSI or we have a member that is part of ISFSI. So there's kind of three levels there that we're going to be delivering in the virtual world. The first question from Demond is looking for help on how to set up an annual training calendar. I think all of us can agree that is the hardship there. Maybe I can start us off by speaking to that a little bit. What we did with help from Tim Cassidy, Drew Smith, Forrest Reeder, Brian Kasperzak, the list goes on, is we kind of created a JPR-based training curriculum that these are the JPRs that we have to know, master, and be able to repeat, and put those into a contextual training program, meaning, let's say we're doing a search on the second floor and we can tie in hose movement to the second floor, search and rescue, ladder throws, breaking and breaching through a window, and that can be one training evolution. But with each one of those JPRs, so to speak, we took the Gordon Graham model and said, we're going to have high frequency, low risk, and low frequency, high risk skills. And so the low frequency, high risk skills, we're going to be practicing every year. And then the high frequency, low risk skills, we're going to be practicing every 3 years. And we formulated that into a 3-year training program because it's impossible to hit everything within a year, as we all know as training officers. And it's a pretty robust document. I'd be glad to pay that forward. And we break it down into, okay, this is what we're going to do January of first year, February of second year, blah, blah, blah. It just gives you a framework. It's not that you need to follow that, but it gives you a framework, and most importantly, that when you're lost, you can pick up and get going pretty quickly. That's what I've been working on with like a bunch of other guys, and we're planning on pushing that out to the whole membership here. We're working with another kind of subcommittee of pushing out the training officer packet 101, so to speak, and we're still on the 10-yard line with that. Anybody else? As far as training calendars go, I'd be really interested to see what the bigger organizations are doing, because you guys got your hands full with everybody.
I'll jump in. So our training folks sit down at the beginning of every year and map out, pretty much based on what Seth was just talking about, skill sets that need to be worked on. And then in particular, we're looking for feedback coming from company and command level officers on what gaps or deficiencies they saw, because that's also part of it. Knowing what the JPRs are and what we need to keep current on is a big part of it. But the second part is getting that input from the folks on the line who are saying, this incident went sideways because, fill in the blank. They deployed the line, it turned into a spaghetti pile. Okay, so we have line advancement issues. That being the potential training objective, how are we going to do that to scrub that particular problem out? Because if we just do any line advancement, that really isn't addressing the specific issue that was identified. So that between the two, that sit down and mapping out what the year looks like is a big deal. And we're fortunate enough that we have specific training functions, not just one training element. So EMS training, field training, driver training. And then the goal has been to try and coordinate that. That's been over the last 2 years, I think that's been a big success in that, understanding, the fact that we're blessed to have different functions to be able to specialize in that. But I would argue that even scaling that down to a smaller organization, looking at it from different perspectives is crucial, because if all you're doing is hose line advancement, okay, you get something out of that. But wouldn't it be significantly better if you're responding to the event, putting it in the context of a real world event? You're evaluating what the driver's actions are. You're evaluating the size of process that the officer should be doing, because you're painting it in the context of a real world event. The hose line advancement, throwing ladders, and then you have an opportunity to knock off several of those things in one shot. And then, of course, scheduling that, I don't know if you were looking at, Damon, if you were looking at the specifics, like a program, but we have a master calendar function online, which rules our lives at a certain point, just because of the number of moving parts, to make sure that we're deconflicting the training with the other obligations that are going on the street.
Jace, did you have something, or Chris? Jace?
Yeah, I did. So I work for Omaha Fire out of Nebraska. So we're pretty mid-sized. I would say probably mid-sized department. We have 650 personnel, 24 stations. So what we do, as being in the training for the last couple of years, that we actually come up with a I want to almost describe it as a culminating event, right? So every year we spend about 3 months pulling people from the streets. They come out during the summertime, and we do like a scenario-based training. What we're trying to do is that we're trying to build our training calendar after that and off of that. And I'm sure there's some people with military background. Sometimes it's nice if you have that culminating event where you get your multiple rigs together, if you can, and you build that training calendar backwards, right? So just backward planning. So if you sit there and think about, hey, I want to do like a, we have the privilege of having a rather large training facility. So like if we want to do like industrial fires, or if you want to do like single family dwellings or whatever, we have that capability within our tower. So we sit there, we build that out, and we're now starting to slowly work. So we as we do the company training, and the training division comes up with 10 company schools a month, we push that out to our suppression. So you build that forward, and that seems to be starting to working very well. So ideally, if you're following like quote unquote the military model, is that you sit there and build those companies up, so when they actually get out to that training center or to your culminating event for that year, then like it shouldn't be flawless, but it should be pretty darn good. And then you sit there and say, hey, you sit there and you do your after action reviews, and you're like, hey man, it's like you had problems with pulling the line. Why is that? So they kind of do like some introspective, like self-critique on that. So that's working fairly good for us. And obviously we get information from our chiefs, assistant chiefs, battalion chiefs, and how like what they think should be done. And we try to rotate that. We always try to incorporate obviously instant command, hose line, pump operations. We kind of switch that stuff up. And that seems to be working pretty well for us as a training division. So I mean, it is very labor intensive, because usually as soon as you're done with that culminating event, you're already planning straight for the next year. But it seems to work very well, and we've had a lot of good positive feedback from the suppression captains and engineers and firefighters that they like that. So it's not like, we usually try to knock it out in 4 hours. So it's small, it's quick, you build them up. So people don't like to be embarrassed, right? People like, we're all kind of like alpha type personnel. People don't like to be put on the spot. But if you give them the chance to practice this stuff before like a nice like multi-company event, usually like it works really well. So that's my 2 cents.
Chris, do you have something to add there?
Yeah, so Chris Jett, Stafford, Virginia. We're a small fish in the Nova Pond, but we're kind of halfway in between Mr. Davidson in Fairfax and Jace in Omaha. We kind of let 1410 guide us in the basics, and then anything that comes up due to specific incidents, we try to throw in there. But we try to have multi-unit drills once a quarter or at least twice a year, and we give the company officers the topics or the JPRs that'll be evaluated during those events, and let them figure out the best time and place to practice them up to that point. And it kind of serves a couple of purposes. One, to make sure that everyone can do their job. But number two, it also kind of gives the battalions a way to evaluate the company officers to see who actually is out there doing the training and the practice, and who might be spending more time in the recliner than they are outside working with their folks. And we kind of got to, I mean, obviously we got away from it back because of the COVID stuff, and we had a change in leadership, but we're slowly starting to work back into that framework so that we can get some structure back going.
Hey, Damon, Dade, can you send an email and then I'll send it to everybody here so we can get a lot of stuff heading your way as far as training calendars go. And just type it into your chat room there, and I should be able to get it and then push it out to everybody as long as everybody's seeing my last post saying okay. You know, something that I've been tackling recently that's been, at least I think, effective is been using Target Solutions to create credentials. And I'm not sure how many people are using Target Solutions. You know, it's expensive. It's kind of the Cadillac of training delivery out there. And there's a lot of pros and cons. You know, the cons are checking the box, so to speak, but you can create these credentials within each firefighter has to navigate. So let's say you're a backstep firefighter, and then an engineer, and then a captain, and then a BC. So you have those 4 people that are going to go to the same training, right? You can create a credential that they're checking off a skill for each one just by simple, just like Chris was saying, a 1410 evolution, where it's, you know, hook up a pumper, get a 1 3/4 and a 2.5 flowing 250 GPM in under 4 minutes. All of a sudden, you've created an evolution that everybody benefits from, can check the box, and it's and then you can switch roles and see what everybody else is doing, so everybody else can do each other's job. I really like what Chris said about using that 1410 as a springboard, because not only are you meeting the NFPA standard, but you can really dive into that pretty deep. And I got all those evolutions really cleanly spelled out, and with some, you know, with some graphics on there that are just a 1-page stop and shop that you can just throw on the coffee table saying this is what we're going to do today. And the guys are psyched, man. I don't think anybody's ever bummed about pulling hose and pumping trucks. I'm going to put out Damon's email here real quick so we can all fire him our training calendars and inundate him with a bunch of information. Anybody else got anything to add?
Yeah, real quick. We've hit on a lot of the stuff that's applicable and everybody wants to do, but don't forget, build in some time for admin, new policies, new procedures, new equipment, new apparatus. As that stuff comes on track, you've got to make sure you cover it. Your compliance-based training, so you're checking the boxes for OSHA and whoever else. Your certification, what you have to do to maintain your certifications if you have EMTs, paramedics. So definitely got to focus on where the rubber meets the road, but you're also going to have to build in time to cover those other areas, because that's the stuff a lot of times that kind of goes by the wayside. And another example, we're just getting ready to go through the ISO audit. So you're going to want to make sure you're doing your training that checks the boxes for things like ISO as well. If not, once again, you get to the end of the year and you're like, oh crap, we didn't hit that stuff, and now you don't have time to make it up. So, but I think that's a good topic for us to do a webinar or an instructor-led, how to up schedules. So I can assure you that the committee will be working on that. So look for more to come. It's definitely something we all have to do. So.
Hey, if I could piggyback off the Chief's mentioning ISO, and also if you're at all interested in doing the CPSC accreditation process, tracking those hours is a big deal as far as the training components go, and making sure you meet the benchmarks as each organization states. So yeah, can't say enough about that, looking at the broader picture. And just tying in with the brother from Omaha in that discussion about that culminating event. So included in those evolutions that I mentioned that are to capture multiple different aspects, we include EMS or EMS training function. So we'll include a burn victim that they then have to work, you know, not just the typical drag the dummy out, throw it out the window. Hey, we did it. We got a grab. You know, no, they get a moulaged up patient that they have to take care of. And in the context of that first arriving unit, now the company officer is being evaluated for their decision making, because you got a live burn victim, you've got a fire. You can't just walk past the burn victim. What are you going to do? How are you going to take care of that? And all those other elements in there that are being taken care of at the same time. And we get that counting towards the, we've got it dialed in so that they're counted towards the EMS continuing ed hours as part of the evolution.
Good stuff. Greg just had a question for everybody. I'll try to field here. When you have company officers administering JPRs, does anyone follow up somehow to make sure they're actually able to complete the skill and has not been pencil whipped? If so, how do you decide which companies you test and what you do when they do not perform to expectation? I could start off with that. The company officers have to hold the accountability of each person performing the skill. And the way that works with checks and balances is we have a lot of shift swapping. We have a lot of people that cross-pollinate across shifts. So when that member comes across from like B shift to A shift and they're not performing their skills, we hold that captain accountable. And that captain has to answer to all the BCs. So there's a lot of cross-pollination with the captains when they're picking up overtime shifts and whatnot, working with other BCs, and the BCs are a unified front as far as the skill level goes. So it polices itself. There's nobody that can slip through the cracks and not know what they're doing, because we call them out when they show up. When they show up on my shift on A shift and that captain doesn't know what he's doing, he's not going to work with me anymore until he knows what he's doing. So that's the way it's working out for us. Does anybody else have any tips on beating the pencil whip? Now, there's always going to be 20% that's pencil whipped. I mean, let's all be honest with each other. All of us have done it, right? All of us have pencil whipped a CPR test or something like that. But you just got to forget about the 20% and concentrate on the 80%.
I think that's where the culminating event comes into play. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's where the evaluation has to take place. But whatever rank is above the company officer has to also have their feet on the ground and travel around and interact and even participate in the regular training events, just so that the folks see that they can still do everything that they're supposed to be able to do, and not just sit back in the office and wait for the paperwork to hit the desk and put their stamp on it. They've got to be actively involved. If not, it's going to show at whatever multi-unit drill is whenever it's scheduled, and then everyone's going to look bad. Hopefully that's the first time it shows. Hopefully there's not a real culminating event in between there, and it shows up to those who are paying our taxes.
Aaron just brought up a good point to Mark here, saying it's important to categorize ISO training correctly as well. Most importantly, company level training, live fire training, not the training building. There is a document on isfsi.org in the members resource section that was put out more than 10 years ago, but it's still relevant because we're putting it into our Training Officer 101 packet. But it shows all the OSHA, ISO, and NFPA compliant training that you have to do, and breaks it down from a yearly to whatever the timestamp is, and it's still holding up, and it's still a relevant document. So that really maps out, especially with ISO, of how you need to document that training too, which is something that as a very young training officer when I first started, that I didn't really grasp of how detailed you need to be with documenting the training. It's not just we went out and did an offensive fire attack, it's where you did it, who you did it with, what apparatus, what times, was it at day or at night, blah, 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 on and on. Anything to add on that, Mark?
No, that pretty much covers it, and he's right on point. You got to make sure they go into the right areas. If not, you'll get gigged on it during the audit process, and especially the amount of work that you're investing to get to that ISO or CPSC accreditation. You don't want to be in that. So anything you can get, especially if it's the first time you're in on those processes, you want to make sure you've got all that beforehand so that you're not just guessing as you go through.
I have a question.
Yeah, come on. Yes, sir.
All right. Well, concerning that ISO tracking, when it comes to target solutions and you're going to pick what credential, does it go in the state fire marshal side, or will it be ISO? Do you have to, or does it matter how you run your report?
The pitfall of Target Solutions is it doesn't run good reports. And it's a great, robust training delivery system to make sure everybody's seeing, hearing, and watching the same thing. But as far as running a report for your chief, for your training chief or your fire chief, it's horrible. And unless you're the training officer in the trenches doing it, you're not going to be able to interpret it at all. So we use another platform called emergency reporting for our PCRs, inspections, life safety inspections, hydrant tests, on and on and on. And we actually double dip and put our training into that, because you can upload the documents and then run a very robust report with emergency reporting that shows you exactly what they did, where they did it, and how much training you're doing. But Target Solutions is not the vehicle to do good reports on. It's a vehicle to deliver training. Back to the question about, is it state specific or with IS, or is it just with ISO? It's as complicated or as simple as you want to build it. You can't say, hey, I'm from Montana and it's going to give me the Montana Fire Marshal's training curriculum. But what it does do is, not only like ISFSI, it has a resource center that you type in VEIS and you'll get 30 different training programs from different fire departments that have submitted it to their online resource. So that's a big benefit as well. It's steep learning curve. I'm not going to lie to you. I've been doing it for 4 years now, I think, with Target Solutions, and I feel really confident at it, but I don't feel good about the report generating. But if you're going to go that route, I can be your best friend on that.
Seth, do you guys have to populate both systems, or do you can you get input the data into Target Solutions and it migrate, imports it, exports it over to that other software?
It doesn't. You could grab PDFs, but that's about it. But once you start building, the first year sucks.
Yeah.
But once through the first year, it's minimal work after that.
Yeah.
From a training officer's perspective.
I think I have a solution to that. So we're in Target and we do the credentialing. And if you tie each of those trainings to a credential JPR, Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2, or ISO, whatever that is, if you log, you can go in there and click, it's just like clicks manage credentials or whatever, and you can add that training to that credential and then it hits it. But there's also a better report that generates off that compared to if you're just doing the checkbox JPRs. So I don't know if that's new or not, but that's how I do it, and that it runs there. It's so clean. It's perfect.
That's good stuff. Boom.
I was going to say, and God, this is going to sound so snobby when I say it. We're fortunate in that I've got a full-time admin who runs our Target Solutions. And so if anybody has any questions, especially to your question about how to do that, please hit me up and I'll get your email so you can talk with her. Because as far as I know, we just aggregate all our numbers in there and it's able to spit out a report. So I know exactly where we sit. It even gives me a bar graph, like you're in the red, you're in the yellow, you're in the green for the percentage of hours that you need for ISO. And, I'm pretty sure it's a one-stop shop. And in a sense, we even I would say, as a training platform, we misuse it, because literally every piece of documentation we put out, our informational bulletins, general orders, aside from training content, all of those are put out in Target Solutions, and each one of those aggregates is a 0.15 hour to go towards, whatever area it's included in. So if you hit me up, I'll connect you with our Target Solutions guru in-house, and she can maybe give you some tips.
Yeah, we do the same exact thing, Mark, when we're pushing out new SOGs and new SOPs. I guess where I'm frustrated with Target Solutions, which I think is it's easy to populate NFPA, nighttime, daytime training, ISO compliant training. But like, if you really want to get in the weeds and say, okay, how much did we do vehicle extrication or heavy rescue extrication? It's really hard to generate reports like that are detail oriented, that somebody else outside the training program can digest. And that's what I was speaking to. But I totally agree with you. I think it's a great vehicle just to put out the chief's announcement for that week, because you can see who's read it and who's not. what else is people working on that they're having trouble with, or they're having success with, or I don't want to just harp on the negative. You know, what are we out there doing that's had a positive impact on our guys and girls? Damon, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, sorry to keep hogging
Oh,
on
it's all
time.
good. It's all good.
One of the things I'm trying to do as well, and I think I heard you allude to it, is I'm working on like some career tracks for, once again, for like our lieutenants in training. You know, the company officers, the acting officers, what we call them. We just, right now, you get 3 years on, you can sit in the seat, be acting officer, but there's nothing that quantifies what that means. You know, how prepared are you? Have you done reports? Have you done any hydrant inspections, business inspections, all the things that you need to do to sit in that seat? We don't really quantify it, and I've put together something. So if you guys got anything like that for probationary, and I know it's a little bit different for each department, but even if you got a model for that for probationary firefighters, engineers, acting captains, you know, any of that information would also be helpful. So.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, we use task books explicitly for all of that. We have one for our probationary firefighters, our EMS providers, the BLS and ALS. We have them for our technicians, our master technicians, for basically for every rank. So as you get promoted, or as you're able to act in those spots, there's a document that says you've done at least everything once, but preferably many times, and have been signed off and checked off by shift leadership, admin, and says that you are ready to go. And actually, we just had a girl in our shift who just finished up her master tech process yesterday, and we got the announcement today that she's fully released and ready to go starting tomorrow. And it works well.
Looks like the chat room's up and running.
Go
ahead, Damon.
I was just gonna say, yeah, if you want to share any of that, that'd be awesome too. Like I said, that'd be a great help.
Yeah, so Damon, we have the same exact thing that Chris is talking about. We were at task books, and we put it all online because the paper books were just getting super huge and lost 3-ring binders. So I put that all in Target Solutions. And so what that looks like for us is we call it your Operational Readiness Academy. We don't call it Probationary Academy, and that's the academy that we assume everybody's coming with some little bit of experience into our organization, and then that's their first 6 months on the job, and then we do a probationary year task book, and then we do an advanced firefighter task book, and then after those 3 years, they're allowed to start working on their engineer task book. And then that usually brings them up to 5-year mark, and then they can start working on their acting captain task book. So speaking to what you said about your guys riding as actings in the right front seat, it's a very robust document that you have to go, so many false alarms, so many real alarms. You got to initiate command 5 times. You got to blah blah. You guys know the drill. Blah blah blah. You got to be blue card certified. So when they are up for promotion, they're already vetted within our organization. We've seen them perform, and it comes down to if they've been doing a good job or not. And I have that all in the cloud that I'd be happy to fire your way. Just send me an email and remind me what you're looking for, and I'll just fill you up with all that stuff. And you can take what you want and trash the rest. Scott Smith said he had task books to share too, right, Scott?
Yeah, we use a task book for each of ours. A couple guys on my crew right now are going through their acting officer. We call them qualified relief driver and qualified relief officer. Right now, they're not online. We only have the hard copies. I can see if I can get from the training division. I'm sure they have an electronic version somewhere. So yeah, I can see if I can get that and get it sent over.
Awesome. The problem that we've experienced with task books, I'm sure everybody can relate, is you get that disgruntled company officer that just doesn't want to deal, and he pencil whips it. And again, you're going to get that 20% of pencil whip in there. But, you know, you just kind of have to reemphasize, you know, that for all positions, you know, you're responsible for that round trip ticket of getting your firefighters back to their loved ones. So you got to take it seriously, and, you know, got to have buy-in. And I think, you know, once you get up to the captain and BC level, I think that, you know, if you're used to that type of system, you're going to have buy-in, and you're going to take it super seriously, and you're going to hold people accountable below you.
Thank you guys.
Officer development. Go ahead, Damon.
I just was saying thank you guys.
Oh yeah, what's mine is yours, and I know everybody else agrees with this on this call, so no problem, man. Mike, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, something else to throw out to everybody. One of the committees that ISFSI is kicking off is going to be the task force for professional development. So it's going to be a committee that's going to just focus on professional development. Along those lines, we've created a matrix for firefighter, driver, operator, instructor, fire officer. What we need, though, from the membership to help everybody are those task books and everything. So if you have something out there that you're willing to share, please make sure to contact me. I'll throw my email up here, or when the committee sends out, we're going to send out that we're looking for this kind of stuff. Because once again, if we can all share this, it's going to help everybody out so we can rip off and duplicate, not have to research and develop this. But our goal is to have a matrix that covers from day one when you walk in all the way up to chief fire officer, everything that you need to make that happen. So look for more in the future coming from that committee. And then if you have anything you're willing to share, please feed it to the committee. So.
Yeah, Mike, I got a tremendous amount of stuff to share with you guys too. And you know, Mary's helping me out a lot with just that instructor package, which will really help with that whole career development for everybody within this organization, of giving them that, you know, starting virtual 3-ring binder, so to speak. I've been talking about for 17 years, so we'll get to the finish line here. Okay, who else has got some successes or failures, or what challenges? Kind of getting into the final stretch here. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if we got dead air, I get yelled at all the time because I talk too damn much. So at the point where the one thing I would emphasize, if you're looking for a training success, is my stovepipe, my organization is officer development training. And there's a lot of organizations that I end up talking with and sharing ideas. And there's what I believe is a misperception that officer development training is just something you can get to when you have the resources. So the focus is obviously on basic firefighter skills, EMS, the stuff that Chief Richardson was mentioning before, those key admin, all those key areas in there. And then looking at the career, professional development, officer development side of the equation, most organizations are saying, we'll get to that when we have money. Or even if they have the resources one year, the very first thing that gets cut when training gets cut is typically that officer development function, because it's viewed more as a luxury. And I would say the one thing I would put out there is that it is not a luxury for us. In the fire service, training for leadership is a core part of the training mission. And what that looks like for your organization, if you have 1 or 2 officers, or 10 or 20 or 100 or 200, it's a matter of scaling it to what you have. But it cannot, the fire service will continue to see some of the dysfunction that it deals with every day when you don't train your leaders. And that's a core part of the training mission. And it's just a matter of finding how you scale that to the resources you have. So that's my one little soapbox when we talk about training.
Yeah, it's all good points. You know, I think if you're struggling with an officer development program, a great springboard is that CPSE designation for the fire officer, because what that does is it maps out the individual skills that directly tie into the NFPA standard, and it forces your company officers to take those courses that are uncomfortable, like report writing, HR, all the stuff that's not sexy out there, and make them be a well-rounded officer. We started that program of all of our officers have to be CBSEFO designation and go through our officer development acting captain task book. So, you know, and you know, there's programs out there like the IFC that supplement that if you go through a 3 years with FRI, you can knock out that entire designation in 3 years. You really be a much better, well-rounded officer. And I'm not talking about, you know, incident command or, you know, sector groups and divisions. I'm talking about, you know, the stuff that none of us want to teach from a training officer's perspective on how to write a good report.
I got you on the phone. Let me see you focus so maybe you know you feel a little bit better. What are you guys using as far? Do you have a place set up at your facility where like the instructors come in and do their Zoom teaching? Okay, so you already have the video.
I'm not sure if that person's talking to us or not, but I will mute everybody. There we go. Okay, we're kind of in the final hour. We don't want to drag stuff on too much. If anybody else has something they want, feel free to ask, or, you know, as everybody knows, what's mine is everybody's. All you have to do is shoot me an email and I'll share everything under the sun that I have, and I've stolen from everyone. I've stolen from all of you. So all you have to do is ask and tell me, and, you know, remind me what we're talking about, because I got a terabyte full of stuff here right next to me that I'm more than willing to share. Dropbox is a good medium for me. I can push it out into a link so we don't have to trade too many emails back and forth. Anybody else got anything to add, Mike?
If I can add something to that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Anybody have anything that you can add that you would like to see us address in the happy hours? Is there a particular topic, subject, something you think that we could get a good discussion going on? You can throw it out now or email us. So once again, any feedback? Was this a good idea? Do you like this format? Would you rather see more structured presenters or speakers? Are there topics that people are looking for? Because, you know, once again, we want to put a product out there that involves people and people are interested in. So.
Yeah, well said. Thanks. Damon, yeah.
I kind of like this forum with all of us getting to talk. I mean, I'm not saying other speakers wouldn't add value, but I mean, be able to bounce stuff off each other, you know, in real time is kind of nice.
I completely agree with you, man. That's why we started this whole thing in the beginning. And then we kind of recognized that we went towards a little bit more of a webinar fashion, which was great. You know, we got some good stuff going, but no, I totally agree. I like hearing and seeing everybody too. You know, I'm a big fan of that. So I can because I'm terrible with names with everybody. So I like putting the eyes on everybody. Okay, Jeff, did you have something, buddy?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to mention is that, you know, most of us are career or have been career. I had a career, now I've gone back to the paid on call world as a retired, got into emergency management, but we need to find a way maybe to help the paid on call folks or the volunteer folks who don't have a lot of the resources that we have, and they don't have, you know, they never know the day that tones drop, who's driving, who's the officer, who's the firefighter. We just had a training last night where we had that issue with a paid on call department, and you know, you just got to put the right folks in the right places when they show up that day. And that's something I think, even though, you know, like, again, I think a lot of us are probably career, but we probably interact or at least do trainings for other departments who are not career. And we need to maybe find a way to do some of the really cool stuff that we're able to do on the career side, and maybe find a way to make that work for the volunteer folks, because they really struggle with some of this stuff. We have the ability to know that a guy's going to come in and he's going to go through his task book, he's going to work his way up, he's going to become a temp officer or whatever, and then he's going to be a lieutenant, then he might go to training, then he might be a captain. But those folks, they don't have that. It's not so cut and dried. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And that's the world I came from. So I'm very, very sympathetic towards that world, and I'm very conscious of that too. And every department except one around me in my immediate mutual aid is volunteer organization. So I hear exactly what you're saying, and we just need to pay it forward with those guys too, and keep it simple, right? Like, you know, we don't need to be doing this complex search and rescue, large room grid search training with them. We need to show them how to search fast. Keep it simple. Well, good. Unless anybody's got anything to add, Mark and Mike, I appreciate your guys' time and carving out your day to be here with me. It helps having people have a discussion rather than just, listen to my annoying voice. But in 2 weeks' time, we'll do this thing again, and I really appreciate everybody's time. The basement fire stuff should be coming out soon. I threw Caleb under the bus. I don't know if you knew that or not, Caleb, but I offered and volunteered your time to Underwriters Laboratory, so stay tuned for that. If you just want to stay on the call, I'll tell you what's going on with that, but you got about, 36 hours to finish a project within the next week, so good luck with that. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Damon. You guys fire me an email, and Chris, thanks, and I'll get my stuff out to you, and everybody will try to help each other out. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you. See you next time.
Hey, Jeff. Can I speak with Jeff before he leaves?
Yeah, sure.
And this might be a bad word here, I don't know, but I'm also an instructor for ISFSI, and they have a cornerstone program that helps out volunteer departments. It's free of charge, and if you have a topic that you need, but it's in the state of Illinois, so I'm not sure where you're at. So
I'm in Michigan.
Michigan, okay. But anyway, one of the things they do is they offer, and I don't know if your state has something like that where, they have funds that help send out instructors so that they can cover the things at that particular station that they need, even if it's just, tools on the truck, whatever it is. So maybe you can look state agency and see if there's some people who can come out and help with that.
I'll look again at the Training Council for Michigan and see what they've got available. But a lot of times it's guys like us that are going to other departments and trying to help out because they don't have the resources, or they don't have that one guy that you can go to for some of the topics. And, I myself have been that guy, going to some of these departments that need the help. And schedule wise, I didn't mention it earlier, but schedule wise, it's extremely difficult for them to get all this stuff in. And then what I found over the years is that they will set a schedule and they'll have the best of intentions, and then they have that one incident where something didn't go well, or actually some things didn't go well, and they changed their schedule to address that need. So the schedule for those guys a lot of times is extremely fluid. It doesn't stay hard and fast like what we can do with our career departments, because there's always another literal fire within the department to put out because they had an issue.
Yep. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Hey,
motivate them to join ISFSI.
Man, I'm trying.
Hey, Jeff, are you familiar with RAFT?
Yes.
Okay, I was going to say, because that's another resource in Michigan for some people too, may help. So, yeah.
Yep.
I thought Michigan already burnt down like to the ground by now.
Okay, but a couple of towns have.
Hey, Caleb, so what we're looking for is this pilot program for the online delivery of the basement fire, understanding and fighting basement fires. So we've been working with Dan at UL and a couple other subject matter experts, but what we need is, I put 4 firefighters in touch with Dan, so Dan should be reaching out to you to take the pilot program so we can know where the holes are or what's not being understood. So don't read up too much on it before now and then. It'll probably be, 4 hours of your time that you can stop and start, and then you can supply your suggestions of like, this was clunky, or this didn't make sense, or I don't understand this. And I just went ahead and volunteered you. I hope that's okay.
Sounds good. Excited for it.
Awesome. Appreciate your help. Yep. Okay, guys, I'm going to cut this off and stop recording if everybody's okay with that. Anything else for the good of the order?
How am I going to get your guys' emails?
Okay, I'll post mine right now. Is your chat room working, Damon?
Yeah.
Okay, posting mine right now. And you can always find me on ISFSI, just doing a member search too.
Okay.
So Caleb, don't read up on any basement fire stuff now until then. I need you to be fresh, brother.
Hey, we had a basement fire today.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, we good, everyone?
Yep.
All right. See you guys next time. Good seeing everybody. Talk to you soon.